have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast here. I'm your host Coale, and with me as always I have my good friend and co-host Aaron. Aaron, hello and welcome to the new year, friend.
Hi, Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you as well. How's 2024 been so far?
Oh man, it's 24 out of 10.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's like,
Oh yeah.
what, like 240% good?
Yeah. Good math, quick maths.
Okay, well that's good. I'm glad I'm not a little rusty and slow to the draw whenever it comes to percentages and maths.
Yes.
So I felt like, starting the new year off right. You have your resolutions of stuff that you want to get done and everything else like that. And one of the things that I've been meaning to do, and I figured you could tag along with me, is checking out the film Suspiria.
Suspiria.
Yeah, and as we established in our last episode, you had never even heard of it at all whatsoever there.
Never heard of it. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. It was pretty agonizing to get me to charades the words out.
Yes. I had to edit out like 50% of that out because it was so painful whenever I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm making us both look bad here.
Sussy baka.
Sussy baka. But yes, it is a Italian horror film by Dario Argento, who is a very renowned horror director, especially in this sort of thing. In fact, he kind of has like his own genre, I believe, called giallo. Because I have seen a few films by him, but not this one. This one is usually heralded as like his like most well-known film that everybody knows him for, and it's a film that I've been told multiple times to watch. I just hadn't gotten around to it, and I figured, what the hey, I probably should get around and start watching it.
Yeah.
But do you have any thoughts about this kind of being one of our first foreign horror films that we're experiencing?
Yeah, well, this is Italian horror, you say? I wonder if they're going to be like, there's no spaghetti with my meatballs. Just people cooking.
Somebody stole my plate of spaghetti!
Just people cooking pasta wrong, and all the Italians are getting scared.
Microwaving spaghetti noodles.
Yeah, breaking them before you put them in the pot. Mamma mia!
But yeah,
no thoughts.
You're good. I'm kind of going in cautiously optimistic because I've seen his other films and I'm like, okay, yeah, just good solid thumbs up and everything. And with this kind of being like the one film that he is known for, like, I guess, piece de resistance.
There we go, yeah.
Sure, yeah, that's much better. My words are hard to come by today. Math good, word bad.
True, that's the lesson for today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy we're finally starting off the new year with a highly anticipated film of mine, and hopefully Aaron's able to enjoy the view as well.
Yeah.
Find some stuff to point out, and so we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
BRB.
BRB, baby!
And we are back from experiencing and watching a Suspiria. Aaron.
Yeah.
How would you like the film?
It was much less Italian than I wanted.
Yes. So the copy of the film I had only had the English dub on there because the film was initially recorded in Italian and German, but they dubbed it in English. Little did I know that the copy of the film I have only has the English version. So, that's how it be. But fortunately, I don't think the dub hurt the film too much because not only because the vocal performances were pretty good, but there's really not quite as much talking. It's like half of it's talking, half of it's just experiencing everything around it.
Yeah, and I could be crazy, but it seemed like a lot of the movie was in English because, like, they were dubbing, but the lips were matching up, and then there was only parts of the movie that they were dubbing, and it was obvious that they were dubbing, so I don't know, like...
Yeah, it's always hard to know, like, whether, like, you just got some really good, dubbers and everything, or if it's just kind of going back and forth and everything.
Yeah.
Always makes it curious about it, and I don't know too much about the actual history of Suspiria to know whether there were scenes where they were actually speaking in English there, but...
Well, the main girl, like, her dub always matched up, so I felt like she was talking in English the whole time. And when they were in the school, it seems like they were talking in English mostly, but then, like, outside of that, or, like, occasionally in the locker rooms, whenever the non-American girls were talking or whatever, they would be talking in some other language.
Yes. But yeah, aside from the talking, initial thoughts on Suspiria, Aaron.
Yeah, it was a weird one. It was definitely disorienting at times, I think, intentionally, but, yeah, it was ultimately an interesting film. I imagine Suspiria, does that translate to, like, secret?
I don't know. Let me actually find that out here real quick.
Because I was like, Suspiria, is that suspicious? Is that, what would that be?
Let's see, it's Latin for mother of sighs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, the more you know.
I guess that's a fun fact I wasn't expecting. But...
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it.
But it sounds like a conspiracy or something. Suspiria sounds like it's kind of that, and that's kind of the vibe of this movie. Is something's going on, but we don't know what for a lot of it.
That's fair. I would definitely agree with those overall thoughts and everything. It's very much an interesting film to watch because, as we'll kind of dive into the plot synopsis, it is a mystery because it focuses, well, I might as well go into the plot. What the hey, how about that? It focuses on a gal named Susie coming over from America to this school in Germany that is famous for dance. It's like a dance academy and everything. And once she, literally the first night she gets there, she notices something strange is happening, but the mystery starts to get more questions, and she starts trying to seek more answers through like-minded individuals that's noticing something's fishy about the school that they're at. And pretty much we're just buckled in with Susie, just getting to experience the entire film. So
yeah,
like I mentioned, I knew nothing about the plot about this film before going in. I knew that visually it would be very striking because I've seen lots and lots of stills, clips played of Suspiria and everything. So I was pretty much prepared for that. But whenever it came to the actual story, I knew nothing about it whatsoever. And I was very curious about what the ultimate ending would be to this mystery and everything. And as is, I feel like as a mystery, it was fine and everything. I felt like it was a natural progression in some aspects, especially since Susie, she is questioning, but she's also new to the school, so she doesn't know, and it's honestly other students that start kind of questioning everything that starts to happen that kind of helps her kind of figure out this mystery as well. And story-wise, I mean, I thought it was fine and everything, like no real big complaints or anything like that. Again, the problem I have with mysteries sometimes is the pace that they take to get to the answer and everything. Because, I think that whenever it comes to solving a mystery and everything, the journey there should be enjoyable and the answer should be like a satisfying payoff and everything. And while I feel like, again, this film does have moments of like, oh, did you notice this or that? Yeah, that was weird. There's not as much on it. Like a lot of times it is just kind of seeing them experience lives. Not to mention with some of the cinematography, they really linger on a lot of shots. And if it's visually interesting, it doesn't feel like it takes quite as long. But if there's really nothing visually to look at, it does feel like, okay, you could cut out cut to the next scene or something like that. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty standard plot. No big issues with whatsoever there. Feeling the same about the plot and everything.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's it took me a minute to figure out like what the fuck was going on because the beginning of the movie is sort of a whirlwind, and it's definitely one of those movies where sometimes things are happening and you're like, are the characters experiencing this or is this just part of the editing? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like loud noise stuff, and I'm like, are they hearing this noise or is it just me? And sometimes the answer is they are, and sometimes it's like, no, they have no fucking idea. It's just playing loudly in the background.
Yes.
So there's a lot. It was disorienting in the beginning for me to pick up on, but once it kind of gets going, it does go just slowly. Yeah, I agree. The pacing, it can be a little slow at times, and there are definitely moments where like you as the audience have figured it out and you're just waiting for the character on screen to figure something out and you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah. But and again, because it is a mystery, we do have to keep kind of light on the plot progression and other tidbits like that. So we'll just jump over to characters, which I guess we should talk about our main gal, Susie Banyan, played by Jessica Harper. And it's very interesting to talk about the performance there, since technically I believe it might be two different actresses there, one dubbing over. Again, we talked about the fact that it seemed like she was speaking perfectly good English and everything. So
yeah, like it was definitely, the whole film was dubbed. It's just like sometimes they were dubbing English over English lines, you know what I mean? And it's interesting, or either that or the sound was a really interesting setup or remix or something. But all the sound sounded dubbed, if that makes sense.
Yes, very much so, because there's a lot of moments whenever the lips are either syncing up perfectly or it's not quite, low budget, dubbing bad where the lips and the words aren't matching at all at close. I would say for the most part, if I was to give a grade on how good they matched each other, I'd give it like a B.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There are definitely moments where you can see like a character that's a little obscured is not saying the lines that they were saying, even though they're having an English-speaking conversation.
Yeah, but so pretty much whenever it comes to the dub voices versus the like live actors and everything, it'll be kind of interesting to kind of dissect how their performance was, given it can be like a mishmash of two different ways, both vocally and physically and everything.
Right.
But I felt like for Susie's, played by Jessica Harper, which is a very American name, which does lend itself even more so to being like, yeah, she probably spoke her lines. I thought she was very good. She did a very good job where, especially she's having to be silent and everything, just really like giving like sort of perplexed expressions and just trying to intake all the stuff that's going on around her and everything. So I thought it was honestly perfectly fine. And then vocally and stuff, I thought it was pretty good. It might have been a little downplayed and stuff. Like there's a lot of times, even whenever things are going bad, she's like, I just don't know what's going on.
Right.
Not quite super silly, but it is kind of that same tone and everything.
It is. Yeah. Absolutely.
But it wasn't too distracting enough. It serviced the plot and story well and everything. So I was pretty much fine with her as a protagonist there. Character-wise, nothing much is given to her to like really define who she is and everything. She's just a gal trying her best at this dance academy and just trying to figure out what's going on and everything. So that is a little bit disappointing, but still an enjoyable protagonist to follow there. She also ends up befriending both Olga and Sarah, played by Barbara Magnolfi and Stefania Cassini. And again, it's kind of like the same thing that I felt like they were enjoyable. It was interesting at first to kind of see like a bit of banter between Olga and Sarah at the beginning, but it's only for that one spit. Then afterwards, you never see them both together again.
True.
Like, so it's very limited there, but I do like how they do at least try to differentiate the characters and everything. Olga's very dismissive and like, yeah, whatever, it happens. School's weird, move on. Meanwhile, Sarah is kind of keeping silent at the beginning, but once she becomes better friends with Susie, she reveals more information now that she feels like she has somebody else she can confide in, especially since they're both a little suspicious of the surroundings of the school and everything. And I felt like both actresses did perfectly fine. It's perfectly a-okay there. Again, I would have been very curious because I'm weird whenever it comes to dubs, that I like watching films in the original language.
Yeah,
there,
same, yeah.
I'm kind of the same way, but Dario Argento definitely has odd films whenever they film. Sometimes like they'll literally have English actors. Like this one film I watched, Phenomena, I think it was, had Donald Pleasance in it, aka Dr. Loomis, and you know full well he speaks English and everything.
Sure.
And so whenever it came to a dub, he was speaking in English, but then they dubbed it in Italian. Yeah, it's definitely a back and forth thing. So I wish I could have seen this in the original language, but as is, I felt like both physically, the actresses that played Olga and Sarah did a fine job. Vocally, it's fairly fine there. I will say Olga was a little bit. It's so peculiar, like especially with voice acting, because I've done a lot of it, studied it, and everything. I feel like sometimes they'll deliver a line and they'll just kind of say it in the. I feel like I've heard this exact cadence in so many animes or something like that.
Yeah.
Just be like, well, I don't care exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
something like that is just very specific and it usually sticks out like a sore thumb to me. That's why typically, like, if I do indulge myself in anime, I prefer to listen to in Japanese, because even though I don't know what they're saying without the subtitles, just naturally it sounds a lot more natural, especially since in America they're trying their damnedest to match the lip flaps and everything. So I think that was the thing that makes it very difficult for me to kind of judge acting wise and everything. But it was always a-okay in my books just to keep going on and passing through there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get to some of the higher ups here. Miss Tanner, played by Lydia Valley. And then the head of the school, Madame Blanc, played by Joan Bennett. And I felt like there's nothing too special written about them. It literally just feels like every other kind of superintendent and kind of head of a school there. Just the fact that I will point this out here specifically about Miss Tanner. Vocally, with her dub and everything, she was probably one of the strongest voice actresses I heard there. Like, I felt like she hit the lines, and it's definitely weird for me to analyze a film like this, especially with voice acting and everything, but I felt like she did it so naturally that the lip flaps didn't matter, because she was just hammering out lines and everything. She was always very strong and aggressive with her deliveries and everything. So for me, I was definitely like, oh yeah, I totally buy, like, it's like synced up one-on-one there.
Right.
Kind of the same with Susie and everything. So definitely good to have kind of strong-willed characters like Miss Tanner, and of course the dismissive kind of like everything's fine, I don't know what you're talking about from Madame Blanc there. But written wise, can't say too much about it. And I'm going to be completely honest, I could talk about like every other character that does appear, but at the same point it's like I don't know what else to say about them. The only one I could say anything about in particular is the blind pianist.
Oh yeah.
There, just because I totally bought that he was blind and everything. And so whenever it came to him like walking around and everything, I was like, okay, I totally by that this dude is completely blind, cannot see at all whatsoever. So it's definitely interesting to watch him visually move around and everything.
Yeah,
Yes, his name was Daniel.
Yeah.
Yes. But yes, were there any other characters you could point out to that you did want to talk about specifically?
Not really. I mean, there's like the nephew or whatever, the little weird boy. And
Yes.
the weird boy and is that a Russian lady that follows him around?
Yeah, I think she's like one of the cooks or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very multicultural film. There's, yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of German people. It's an Italian film. It's centered on an American, and there's some people. And there's like some Greece shit too later. It all gets whacked.
It's a big melting pot.
It is a melting pot. That Germany school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, no, I don't think any of them rise to the level of importance that we have to discuss them. They're just, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, as I've mentioned already times before, the biggest star of the film is just the visuals of the film. Like, clearly, Dario Argento, this is the thing he's known for there, is just setting up, like, these crazy contrasting colors on set and everything, and just visually making it pop out. Like, he makes the fact that this is a film and runs with it to its advantage there, because the set pieces, the colors, the lighting, angles, like he's going, like, it is a 12 out of 10 whenever it comes to visuals that they pop in this film, that, you know, this is the thing that sticks out for most people and makes sense.
Yeah. Honestly, it reminds me of theater, just with the lights and the set pieces and stuff. They're so, like, sort of dramatic and stylized, and when a scary thing happened, it's all red, and then whoa, it's all green, and then it's just like, yeah, and then of course all the costumes and everything, like the pure ones are in white often, and then there was all the people in black, and it's just like you could tell this guy is a real, the curtains were blue so she was sad kind of guy, you know what I'm saying? But it's I mean, it's really dope. It's visually, it is striking to watch.
Yes, that for me, as I will spoil, was the thing I enjoyed the most about this film. The visuals were absolutely stunning, and it's even crazy too, because it's not even like a 4K rendition. It was a 4K remaster, but it's on a DVD, so even with that downplay and stuff, just colors popping out and everything, it's visually a strong film, and so I can see why this film sticks with a lot of people.
Right. Even just that very intro where she first arrives at the ballet part and it's pouring down rain, and the doors are like red with these weird like black and white slant, or like the doorway's red and the door itself is like black and white slant. It's like almost like the whole place is designed to be disorienting, and then her experience there ends up being disorienting at times.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Especially the whole building being in red too. So whenever it's like raining and stuff, you see like water pouring down, but because of how vibrant, bright red it is, it just makes it almost look like very bloodied.
Yeah.
And everything. Because even the blood in this film is that, you know, early neon red and everything, not the realistic blood. So it just helps add to the art level that this film has, because there's definitely a lot of visually striking scenes, especially even with the opening scene with the foyer and everything, and the ceiling, and just whenever glass is falling and blood is shed and everything. It's just, it's visually a beautiful film. Like, I cannot state enough how gorgeous this film is, and I know everybody else has as well, and it helps heighten the overall sensation, the fear, just everything about it, just location-wise, set-wise, color-wise, lighting-wise, like, literally home runs. Like, absolute home runs there. It's just a little disappointing that I feel like the story isn't quite as strong.
Yeah, true. It's a pretty simplistic story overall, and man. What can you do?
Yeah. The other thing I would say I would enjoy is the music, which is done by Goblin. Goblin is the artist's name.
Okay.
And I definitely implore you to look up music by Goblin for these films, because whenever I did see the film Phenomena, the thing I noticed the most was the theme of it, and that theme slaps. It's like Castlevania slapping down, just gets you hyped and everything. And music-wise, this film is also really good. I mean, I do love the Suspiria theme and how as the film progresses on, they'll use the same tune, but they'll add in like some disturbing like noises because like it'll play like the normal kind of, I think it's harpsichord sort of sounding, something like that,
or like a music box or something.
Yes, exactly, hurdy-gurdy. Something like that. Yes, exactly. And then as the film progresses on, there's like moments whenever they'll add this voice going, you know, and it's so like bizarre, but it works and everything.
Or just this like the chanting in the background like comes to, what do you call that, a crescendo. It just gets louder and louder and louder.
Yes, that's exactly it. So I would say that was my second favorite thing about this film is just the music that goes with it, but visuals, obviously, they are the star. They have to take the cake and everything. First prize, everything, all about it there. But aside from that, this might go to a little bit of spoilers there, but I know we're kind of getting to the end of everything else. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good was the mystery even?
The mystery itself, it was more of a mystery to the characters than the audience, I think. I think you can pick up pretty quickly at least the general idea of what's going on. And then there's always, I mean, with these sorts of things where the characters don't know what's happening and the audience is a little bit more in the dark too. It's like, you do have your little questions like, oh, is this person part of... Oh, what happens? Is it maybe? But like overall, it's more like the audience is doing that to themselves. The movie is fairly like, here's the bad guys, and then isn't this weird, guys? It's weird. I feel like by halfway through the movie, you should pretty much know that, at least a general idea of what's going on.
Yeah. Another thing that I wish I could have seen more of that I think would have been like even more adding to the visually impressive is more dancing.
Yeah, it is a ballet school and there's hardly any ballet.
Yes, that was one thing I was just thinking about. I'm like, they could have done so much extra with that, which I know would have been like added fluff technically to the pacing, and maybe they ran out of money or something like that. But I think like if we had seen like maybe like them like trying to do like a dance rehearsal or something like that, because you only get to see them like dance like 2 times, I think.
And it is, at least with the main characters, the really simple dances. So I suspect that like the actresses that they had in the lead roles were not good enough ballerinas to do a lot of ballet. Maybe, I don't know, like enough to like fake the simple stuff, but like not do the fancy stuff. I don't know.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Especially because the one time we get to see Susie dance, she already mentions like, I'm feeling really lightheaded right now.
Feeling very weak today.
Meanwhile, she's just trying her hardest to actually keep up with the other dancers and everything.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I could keep talking about the visuals, and that's probably what I'll still do even into the spoilers, talking about specific scenes and everything else like that. Because I'm trying to think of anything else I could talk about that doesn't spoil it, unfortunately.
Right. That's always the hard part about, like a mysterious sort of film. Is we don't want to pop the air out of any potential viewer's balloon.
No.
But this movie is a lot of air wrapped in. It's like a hot air balloon. It's a very nice structure. It's very nice to look at. Inside, there's not a whole lot.
That's so good. Okay, bud. Yeah, with that beautiful hot air balloon analogy, mind you, in place, is there anything else you want to talk about the film before spoiling it?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I think we've hit. I mean, yeah. It is hard, especially with a movie where the main appeal is like the art direction. Like, I don't want to sit here and describe set pieces, you know what I mean? Like, just go watch it. Just put it on your eyeballs.
Yes, I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that. We might try to describe some scenes, but this film is definitely hard to review through just audio.
Right.
This is definitely a film that I could see why so many people have on YouTube have especially shown clips of it just to kind of prove and show the artistic value this film has and everything. So I guess without further ado, we'll just talk about our ratings then. So, Aaron, please tell us what you rate Suspiria.
Sure, I'll give you a brief overview of my thoughts for the rating. I mean, we've already kind of said it. Visuals, amazing. Music, amazing. Acting, it's kind of hard to judge because it's all dubbed over. Even the English parts are all dubbed over. But overall, it's serviceable. And at times it is great. And at other times it is like, oh, is this like a weird dub thing? I don't know. And then the plot itself is just kind of like we're not really here for the plot. We're here for the vibes. So, I mean, with all that in mind, it's like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Personally, Chief. I think the art is, yes, the cinematography is really, really good at times. The art direction, the set pieces are amazing. The lighting, the color is great. The sound design in general, sometimes it has that old movie vibe where it's like harsh, like like old art style movie. But overall, I think it sounds really, really good. It's just the other parts are sort of the pacing, the writing itself. We're not really there for that, I guess, as much as we are the vibe. And it delivers an excellent vibe. So
Terrific. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was very surprised to see you rate it as high as you did, given that obviously. You've been kind of middle of the road so far, minus art direction and music being a bop and everything. So yeah, and it's funny because I also rated a 7 out of 10. Oh. That's the other funny thing too. It's definitely, I could see why people would say like this is like their favorite Dario Argento film and everything. At the same time, I can't. I honestly would not put this towards the top 10 of my personal horror list, per se.
Right.
Visually, if it was visuals, that would skyrocket and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But just as is and everything, I think there's just a little bit too much stuff holding it back. It's definitely a film that, like, if I rewatched it, I would just want to rewatch those specific artistic clips and everything there. It's definitely worth it. It's worth a watch, most certainly, and everything. Like, literally, exactly as Aaron said, you definitely should try watching it at least once, even though Aaron and I are kind of like, 7 out of 10, pretty good and everything. It's definitely a film that you can appreciate visually and everything, and makes the most out of the film medium, I would say, because I don't even know, like, if this, how you would even describe this if this was like a novel or something like that. Like, it just wouldn't even do it justice with how much they put into the scenes and visually and everything else. So it's definitely worth it. Not to mention, I have gotten a little desensitized whenever it comes to horror. There was parts towards the very end that I was getting a bit unnerved. I was like, I was like,
it is pretty good at being unnerving. It is definitely that brand of horror where you're just like, ooh. And there are even some parts where I was like, is this a jump scare? And then it was even better because they just kind of lingered on it. And
yes.
Like, oh.
Yeah. So anytime a film does succeed in like kind of unnerving me or scare me, like in a not cheap way, mind you, I feel like it is easy to kind of make me cringe and everything. This wasn't cringe. This was just genuine discomfort and just feeling overall a sense of fear and everything. So I give it absolute points for that, especially because throughout the film, you don't see too many horrific things. Like, you'll see like a moment of it, but then it'll like jump back down, then go back up. But like I said, towards the end, it definitely amps up the spook factor and everything. So, yeah. Unfortunately, because the story isn't like too groundbreaking and the characters aren't too gripping individuals, it does hurt the film a little bit in my eyes there. But like visually, it's spectacular, perfect, practically. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely try to watch it if you can. I think it might be on Tubi, I believe, anyhow. But definitely go try to seek it out if you can. But without further ado, Aaron and I will have to talk about spoilers here. So,
Aaron, talk about the first spoiler, Bob.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about the first woman who, like, dies to the weird furry arm man. What was that all
That
about?
was bizarre as all get out, dude.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say that this film's disorienting. I was like, at first I didn't realize we'd even swapped characters because it was just like just another white woman, and I was
Yes.
like, who's this? And then like yeah, and then I realized okay, that's somebody different, obviously, but it was yeah, like I thought the movie was maybe going to be more intense because that was like probably the most intense kill of the whole movie.
It really
She
was.
falls through the stained glass ceiling to hang herself with the rope that was tied. It was just like this. Wow.
Yeah. That was Pat Hingle, played by Eva Axon. And you can tell it's her because it's literally a picture of her hanging there.
Nice IMDb page.
Yes, thank you, IMDb. And that scene was definitely very shocking to me because I almost thought the same thing as well. I didn't mention it before spoilers because this is the only time she ever shows up.
Yeah.
And so whenever she's running out of school and she's trying to run to her friend's house, there's definitely a lot of meandering because her friend's like, you're fine, just relax, wash up, take it easy. And then all of a sudden, whenever she's dragged through a pane of glass, because you see like an arm punch through the glass and start pressing her head against the pane just to have her head break through, grabs her, drags her out, repeatedly stabs her multiple times, like an uncomfortable amount of times. And then her friend knows something is wrong, and then as you mentioned, he had tied a rope around her and everything. And as he's stabbing her on the pane glass ceiling pane or whatever, her head breaks through, and then the rest of her body breaks through the panes of glass as she falls, and then there's that tight tug as she's hung. It was brutal. They even showed the heart being stabbed.
Yeah, and the blood coming out of the heart. It was
that was very wild to see and everything. Where I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So it was definitely very shocking to have at the beginning. I feel like that's what the film does. It'll have like shocking deaths and everything, then a whole lot of nothing. Shocking death.
Right.
Yes.
I guess to sort of string the audience along and like at any moment that could happen again, you know.
Yes, that's exactly it. But that was shocking. Not only that though, her friend also dies because she's cut up by the falling panes of glass.
Yeah, and like whatever piece of iron or something was in there that just like stabbed through her. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was it's one of those things where it was disturbing, but because they do make the blood like neon red and everything, there is like almost a level of like art to it, especially because the way the foyer is designed. Like I think literally whenever she walks into the building, like it looks like a mirrored room and everything there, like perfectly parallel with one another. So like artistically, again, it's hard to do this film justice just through describing it and everything. It's definitely something you just have to go and look and watch and experience.
Bro, I'm having like a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. I just realized why those two died and then everything went normal. And the friend was like banging on the doors and be like, wake up. Is because they all drank the like blood wine or whatever that puts you to sleep or whatever. And that's why nobody else.
That's why nobody else.
And that's why nobody remembers it or heard anything or like was just like, oh, even though she was like screaming bloody murder and banging on all the doors and being like,
wow,
that must
man.
be the case.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even think about that. I figured that was just a special order just for Susie.
And well, then that's why Susie was asleep in the scene where what the other S name dies. Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. Yes. Yeah, that was crazy and definitely makes sense because it is definitely shocking that it's like, okay, how's nobody else hearing the screams and everything in an academy and everything else? But yeah, that definitely makes sense there. So kudos to you for that brain blast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably why, because it was the same night that Susie discovers the occult stuff or whatever, and they're talking about how they want to kill her or whatever. And she didn't sip her wine, that she was like, why is nobody here? You know what I mean, right? I mean, she didn't drink it till later. There was nobody there in the beginning, but she was like, nobody's here. And like, that was the night maybe she was supposed to die or something like it.
Yes, yes. It's definitely like it's sort of like little tidbits that are interesting, especially whenever Susie's there and she's trying to get in and talking to someone, and the person's like, sorry, we don't have that name. You have the wrong place or whatever.
Right.
Trying to shove her off, and then you start to realize later that was just Sarah trying to push her away from the school because she's like, look, something's not right with this school and everything.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely interesting because that initial death and everything, you see like that hairy arm with the black nails and everything.
Yeah, with the yellow eyes through the window.
Yeah, and so I was like thinking, I was like, okay, that's the killer running around. But no, that's the only time you ever see someone die like that. You see someone like chasing them or whatever, but you never can confirm it's actually them again. You assume it is.
Right.
Because the only other thing I have is that I was assuming it was the servant or something like that because he's this big hulking brute and everything.
Yeah, I was like, is this some sort of shadow monster they conjured, or is it like now in retrospect? I'm like, is it the witch lady, the head witch lady because her arms were kind of gnarled too, and she had those nails too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that could have been her and everything, but she
know.
seemed pretty freaking frail. Though.
Oh no, absolutely, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely makes you question exactly who or what is killing them. Obviously, it's like the occult themselves, because, spoiler alert, the whole academy is run by witches.
A coven of witches.
Lots and lots of witches going around. And I wasn't expecting witches until whenever Susie, like, midway through the film, is trying to ask about Sarah disappearing, because Sarah disappears whenever she basically gets too close, and the doctor's talking about he was saying like, yeah, she was always afraid of like witches or something like that, and then he's like, oh, let me introduce you to a guy who got a doctorate in witches. And I'm like, I have a feeling this school's run by witches.
Yeah, well, I knew witches were involved at some point in the process, like at some level, whenever in the very beginning she first gets sick and they move her onto the boardroom or whatever. Like when she gets sick is because she passes the nephew and the like Russian cook lady or whatever who has that dagger, and she like shines it on her, and you hear a big booming voice. It's like witch or something.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true. I wasn't sure,
but I didn't know like what, like, is she a witch or something? Why are they yelling witch at her? But
yeah, that earlier scene with Susie walking by and everything and shining the knife. I didn't even realize it was a knife there because it was so shiny and everything.
Yeah, well, I didn't. It could have been a shard of glass. I'm not sure if it was a knife 100%, but I was like, it's probably a knife.
Yeah, something, but it does make sense. At the time, I wasn't thinking like, oh, she's hexed. It's witches. Yeah. Witches are not. I don't have a crucible mindset of like something weird. Witch.
Well, I was like, some witch like made her sick. That's why I think because then she wakes up the next day and she feels awful and she's like, I can't do it. And the board lady's like, oh, do it anyway. Go, and then she passes out. But
yes, exactly. Definitely just kind of odd stuff overall there that doesn't correlate it to witches until, again, the plot literally says, hey, it's witches.
It's witches, guys. If you didn't know already, it'd be witches.
Yes, exactly. Because there is like small hints and everything, like whenever the maggots are falling through the ceiling and everything, and my god, that was disturbing. I get creeped out by like maggots and everything there. Like I'm not completely like, super grossed out, but it is just enough for me to be like, no. Just seeing the maggots fall through, and then it's like, oh, well, we have to gather in this one room and fumigate and everything, which it's weird because they said it was spoiled food, but in the box, was it a corpse? It was so dark to see.
It was definitely meat. It's just hard to tell what kind of meat. Yeah, I don't think it was confirmed. But...
Yeah, for sure. And just having like a plague amount of maggots and everything that just caused it to shower over. Had to explain that scene, but would they end up being in like this big room because they're like, okay, they're fumigating, so all the girls had to stay here, that you see the silhouette of what you find out later to be believe what you find out later to be the head witch, which I had to look up, Helena Marcos.
Yes, yeah, according to the psychologist guy or whatever, that she was a witch that was banned from a bunch of countries, and she started this school in Germany to have all the ballet people there, and then she died in a fire 10 years ago or whatever. And since then, the school has become a famous ballet school and has rejected the occult, and then they don't do that anymore or whatever. But obviously they do, and obviously she's still alive. They just hide her up in the attic or whatever.
Yeah, but they do at least do a good job of like establishing, I guess, clues, things to keep an eye on with the mystery and stuff, because they're like, that snoring, I've heard that snoring before, specifically.
And you definitely know it's something creepy because like they show, like, none of the characters see this, but you as the audience get to see like her descend down or whatever, and she's like,
yeah,
and she like flies down to the bunk or whatever, and then, you know, Sarah wakes up and is like, dude, that's snoring, you know.
Yeah, and it was
it's
like,
the headmistress.
And it was also like a specific snoring. Like there was definitely like,
There's like a whistle to it.
Yeah, a little whistle to it,
A lot of
open mouth
rasp.
breathe. Yeah, a lot of rasp and everything. It was definitely specific.
Yeah.
And then whenever later on you hear that, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and Sarah had said, like, I heard it before specifically in the room next to mine right before whatever her friends was died or whatever, and was like, they said that the headmistress was staying there overnight. And so I feel like it precludes something bad, but
yeah, very, very curious. And there's definitely some odd stuff that, I mean, you know that early on the school is up to no good, especially with some of the random stuff they do. Whenever initially it's like Madame Blanc or whatever is like saying like, oh yes, well you will have to stay with a third year student here. You'll have to pay $50 each time there. But I'm sure you'll be happy. And then the next day it's like, you're no longer staying with Olga. You're instead moving in with this student now. And we're basically making it a requirement. Right. Oh, and then she was like, no, I'm good with Olga. She's cool. And it's just like, okay, fine. And then that's whenever Susie passes out, then wakes up and she's like, wait, why is all my stuff here? It's like, oh yeah, Olga kicked you out.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? And she just never thought once to talk to Olga again, I guess.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think we see her.
I don't think you do, yeah, because I was looking for her, but I didn't. She
Which
never shows up.
Who knows? Maybe they killed her as well. Not confirmed. If did, it didn't show an on-screen death, so... And then that makes her move in with Sarah, so I guess that would make sense. Like, maybe they're trying to keep the sacrifices nearby or something like that.
Yeah, keep the troubled bunch in the same quarters. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe just that room was open since they killed. Was that her roommate that they killed in the beginning? Or no, I guess not.
I don't think so. I can't remember if it was or not. I don't believe so anyhow.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yes, but yeah, either way, definitely sus all the way around there.
Suspiria.
And you know, they do a good job of like continually doing weird stuff there, because like there's a moment actually the night that Sarah dies or whatever, saying like, hey, somebody stole all my notes that I wrote down and everything, and I only have this note because it was on my person, so they weren't able to snatch it off of me. So they do stuff like that. But the thing I do like about that scene is that she's trying to talk to Susie and everything. You could tell Susie is just not there.
Right,
she is completely drugged, knocked out, and everything. And it does lead to a good suspenseful scene that then turns really silly. With it, because whenever Sarah starts running out of the room and everything, you know, she's trying to go to the hallway, it's closed, she's hearing footsteps, she's trying to go around corridors, there's like someone else is coming up and everything, so then she runs up to that same attic space and everything, and mind you, colors are just popping off like crazy, red, blues,
always.
white, doing stuff like that, gets to the attic there, and then she sees like a door open or whatever, and then she decides to move past it, and then lo and behold, a big shadowy figure there stabs her, and not only that, she runs into one then two panes of glass on a cabinet there to really make sure she gets cut up.
Yeah.
And then whenever it comes to her breaking into the room there, The guy has essentially like a butter knife spatula, something like that, because the locks are like one of those like locks that manually go counterclockwise over the little nook there to lock in.
Like you would bar a door with a thing of board, except for it's just a small little thing of iron that latches or whatever.
Yeah, and he keeps just like tapping it.
Yeah,
He's tapping it
trying
like
to flip it
literally 5 minutes, because Sarah has enough time to cower in the corner, look up and see there's a window, take her time stacking suitcases there,
and dragging a chair over to get onto the suitcases.
And then slowly climbing their way through. Meanwhile, they focus on a butter knife going like...
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that guy could be screwing with them, but I was like, I don't know. It seemed like he was going for the kill initially, but I don't know, maybe. But what did follow was definitely something uncomfortable, yet very silly at the same time, because whenever she gets through the window there, she's like propped on these boxes. She's like, okay, I'm good. And then, it's off camera, but whenever she jumps down, barbed wire.
Yeah, the entire floor is barbed wire. Yeah.
Yeah, like covered in spools of it and everything.
Like
and she's
a ball pit, but with barbed wire.
Yeah. And it was definitely uncomfortable to watch, but also at the same point, I'm like, wouldn't that stick out a little bit?
Yeah, like, maybe I shouldn't jump into all this.
Like, it'd be different if, like, she crawled through the window and couldn't see over it and didn't look or whatever, but I don't know. She should have had a little bit of time to be like, oh, okay, this is bad.
This is the barbed wire room. I won't know in here.
But of course, and they do make a graphic. Like, they even show like one close up of like flesh being cut and everything.
Yeah, I think it's to sell the audience that is barbed wire, because it just like whenever they're showing her roll around in it, it's just like it's spools of wire, but not like the barbed kind,
Yes, exactly.
But
it's
she's
like
obviously screaming like it is, so they have to show these like close up flesh tears.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the idea of it is uncomfortable, but it didn't look super realistic enough to be like, man, that looks like actual barbed wire.
Yeah,
like
they lingered on it for so long, and I can just like tell it's not barbed wire. It's an actor rolling through wire, and I'm just like, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but not enough.
Yeah,
for me to be like, you to linger on it this long. But...
Yeah, and that's kind of like, this film came out in 1977, so I don't expect like groundbreaking effects per se. There was definitely some very perturbing scenes, especially since our boy Daniel the pianist gets killed by his service dog.
By his own dog, yes.
Yeah, which was very strange to begin with as to why they even targeted him.
Well, yeah, like the headmistress was angry at him because his dog like bit the nephew, and I could tell like the nephew and the like little servant that he was with are like definitely weird occult people too. So that's probably why the dog sensed evil on them and bit him or whatever. And then the dog again is like sensing evil in that big courtyard that he's in, and then I assume gets possessed. That's what like the little camera swoop thing was, and then destroys Daniel. But...
Well, that's good, because, whenever it does show, like, it doesn't show anything happening at all. It just shows the cook and the little boy walking up to the dog outside, because Daniel ties the dog up outside every time there. And, like, it doesn't show anything, like, him growling or anything. Yeah. It just goes back to says, like, your dog bit a chunk out of the boy's arm.
Well, he does growl a little bit, and then they sort of show the door, and you just hear, like... And something like,
yeah. I just genuinely thought they were going to kill the dog straight up there.
Yeah, I thought they were killing dogs, because I'm used to horror movies, and JoJo's, I guess. So
yes.
This dog's going to die.
Yeah, horrors and JoJo. Hate dogs. Yes, for sure. So, yeah, that does make sense. Like... I just assumed it was all like a farce or whatever. Like, the boy didn't actually die. But yeah, the dog is acting normal. We even get to go to a sweet German bar where they're in lederhosen doing a slap dance.
Yeah.
That was pretty sweet slapping German action.
Yeah.
But yeah, they end up in that very creepy courtyard of the buildings there.
Yeah.
Going towards like the statue there, and then showing that swooping motion, and then whenever the dog bites the dude's throat, it goes from being horrific to silly.
Yeah, because you tell it's like a puppet. Yeah.
Like whenever it shows the dog, actually, I don't know what in the world's eating, but it's so stringy and fleshy looking, where I'm like, oh god. But then it's just like literally dog hand puppet over the guy's throat, doing that. It ends up being goofy. But that was definitely a surprising kill where I was just like, okay, I guess we're killing the pianist.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Duly noted, Suspiria. Duly noted there. Whenever it comes to other parts of the film, again, this film is like, it seems like this review is probably going to be short, but it's because it's so hard to describe every inkling detail.
Right.
I will say, I like the swimming pool.
Was interesting, and it was like clever of them to like they kind of get together and chat in the swimming pool because they never know when they're being listened to or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So visually it looked nice, and again, I did love the idea cinematically of like how they would film that shot, like literally being in the water going. I don't know why the hell I was walking backwards. I was literally walking backwards from the camera, but walking backwards while filming the two in the water there. So visually and like cinematically, I'm like, that's cool. That's cool that they did that. Kudos to Suspiria for doing that. And of course, I like the geometric shapes they had on the tile in the swimming pool, the trident sort of railing they had around it. Just
well, there's just a lot of cool set pieces.
There really is.
I really liked at the end whenever she like climbs up and discovers the secret.
Oh, that was so cool, and I was going to get there.
Yeah, there's so many just cool rooms and stuff, and like even just the big circular hallway she has to like round.
Oh
that's
man,
covered in like Greek writing, and until she gets to the fucking room where they're whispering to her or whatever.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, that's where I'm at review wise talking about this film and everything, because I mean, I know there was like the goofy bat that flew in.
Oh yeah, the bat. Yeah, that one was interesting because that was the only instance of like yellow eyes in the mirror, that or like yellow eyes in the window, that I was like, oh shit, it's the shadow man or whatever. But it was just a bat, and she just beats it to death with a chair.
Yeah, it was brutal too, because not only because she has a stool or whatever. And that bat and her tangled for a long time because it's like stuck in there. Then it's literally flapping on the ground. She throws a sheet over it and then smashes it on the flat end with a stool. Then does like a Bane spine breaker sort of thing, switching it to the side, doing that. And I honestly thought a body was going to appear, like there's like vampires or something like that too.
Maybe, yeah.
Like it just being like an actual body's there, but no, it was just a bat. A bat's going for the kill, but it does lead her to finally go up to Madame Blanc's office, and I always like it's so silly to me because I'm like, I should have figured out that the door was there or whatever, but I didn't even know she was looking for a door, because whenever it comes to like the mystery, because Pat at the beginning, the girl who was leaving, was saying these specific words or whatever.
Secret.
Yes. Yes, doing that, I had no idea, and then once it came to the painting, and then it shows it, it's just like, oh yeah, and visually, it's just interesting. I always think it's cool, but yeah, that hallway where it has like so many different languages on the walls there, and then it's playing that Suspiria theme, going around there, the glows and everything else, and the light veils of like stitched patterns on there and faces. And then she's only able to get a glimpse of, like, the little meeting room there. But not only that, whenever she backs up, she sees, like, the body of her friend Sarah, which was very disturbing to look at because she had nails through the eyes, which, you know me, I don't like that stuff there. But at least I could just push through it, and then, like, her hands are, like, nailed down, and you see the cuts in her body. And it's just definitely, for me at that moment, I was just like, oh man, that's messed up. They did that. They must have done that as like a little passage right or something like that. But then as soon as the big lumbering dude starts walking back, and so Susie has to slip into the room. Well, that's disturbing. Rattling in the walls there. I'm choosing to believe that's my wife, and
I would imagine.
Not witches. Anyhow, Yeah. Whenever she sneaks into the room and you hear that snoring, it was an immediate, oh no.
Yeah. It's like, oop, bang.
Doing that.
And she's veiled in the same way, because in the first scene where you see her, she's like behind in an orange tarp that they set up to separate the boys and the girls or whatever. But then in this scene, she's behind that like sheer, like mosquito net bedding or whatever, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, definitely disturbing and everything else, seeing that there. And then I can't remember how she wakes her up. I guess she maybe knocked over the peacock
yeah,
statue.
she knocked over the peacock and the balls. It's like full of like pool balls for some reason, or like croquet balls.
Oh my gosh, it hit the frame of the bed as well.
And she's like, "Who's in my room?"
Yeah, that was pretty unnerving because like not only that, I'm like, okay, and then the billiard balls hitting the wall. I'm like, okay, that's just like double dead.
Yeah, and then she like tries to leave, but like the big hulking butler guy's like looking for her and like practically makes eye contact, and she just shuts the door. And
yeah,
like,
shuts the door. And...
I'll deal with the old lady instead.
Yeah, and she's like, you have nowhere to run now. And whenever it shows the hand kind of sleeping through, I'm like, okay, it's going to be the big lumbering dude. But no, it's the reanimated body of Sarah. And that was one of the moments I was like, this is unnerving because like the music goes dead silent. It doesn't do like the, you know, sort of horror noise we're used to whenever it comes to jump scare. It's just like that. And then it's just like a screech and a cackle as she runs forward with a knife and everything. So just visually and sound wise and everything, I was definitely unnerved. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like looking at this. I don't like hearing this. This is very disturbing to my core.
Seems like not an ideal situation for our protagonist.
Which I feel like for that to scare me is pretty impressive. Because yes, like it is a bit like violent to look at with like the nails through the eyes. But they don't. I don't feel like they're doing cheap shots of trying to scare you or anything. It's just genuine disturbing to look at as she's walking forward. But don't worry. I get immediate alleviation whenever she pulls back the sheets and the witch isn't there or whatever. But then you get like that video game highlight going.
Yeah, like the interactable item highlight. You know
Yeah, so I was just like, okay, that's a little silly.
It was like when the lightning struck or something outside because it was thundering, like a little spark of lightning went around her outline. And she was like, so I know you're just invisible there. I can stab you. Yeah,
it stabs her with like one of the peacock feather pins there. And so even then you don't get to see all of Lady Marcos or whatever they called her, Marcos. But you do see bits and everything. She definitely looks haggard. You get to see her sausagey fingers.
Oh yeah.
There, and then that's basically a point, I guess, killing her. The whole school starts going to hell.
Yeah,
immediately.
Like, literally starts crumbling and shaking. And I actually love that part because then she has to like escape backwards through all the really wacky.
Oh, I love that
puzzle rooms we just witnessed.
It was interesting to like have her look back at the meeting room and everyone else is like dying, and they look relatively fine. But then you look at the big dude and he's like bloodied up and everything. So it's just like okay. But one of my favorite practical effects is whenever she's running down that hallway, that curved hallway, the walls crack. It's like
yeah, and I love like the room right after that. She's like about to go for the door, and it's like this big porcelain doorknob, and it just like shatters.
Oh my gosh!
Just like explodes, and she like shudders back, but then the doors themselves just like crumble and fall down, and she runs through it. You know?
Yeah, it was visually really cool. And then whenever she gets to that big winding staircase that's in like the foyer of the building, there's like dust rolling in and everything, and the whole place is like in bad shape. And then whenever she finally goes out, the whole building is seen combusting into flames.
Yeah, catching on fire, which is obviously referenced back to how apparently the head witch lady died 10 years ago, which was in a fire.
Oh, so brilliant.
It's all catching up.
But what goes around comes around, you know what I'm saying, fam?
Yeah.
But yeah, but it was very surprising to be like, oh, that's the end, which I was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Our gal Susie made it through.
Yeah. Just running back through the rain.
Terrific. I will have to say one of the scenes that this is such a minute scene and shouldn't matter too much, but whenever she kind of figures out that the food, she's like, I'm not going to eat the food or whatever. She's slopping it down the toilet.
And
just
going
all
of it. Yeah.
I was just like, oh, man, that's just gross. Imagining that.
There's a lot of, I mean, they took a lot of experimental shots, I feel like, and some of them like that were just kind of gross, and others like the one where I like pans up to the light bulb, and then Sarah's like hearing the hushed outside, and she hears the footsteps, and she shuts off the light real quick, and so that keeps filming through the light bulb that's now off, and I thought it was pretty. They had some really amazing and memorable shots as well.
Yeah. Cinematography is definitely top notch most of the time, and I think like, you know, it's like I think it's just really cool to do stuff like that, because I mean that's the reason why Citizen Kane is one of the reasons why Citizen Kane is held high as it is, because of its like, you know, advanced shots, especially with like dolly shots and everything else like that. So I think the fact that Dario Argento made a specific point to be like, hey, why don't we try filming like this, or why don't we try doing this or that there, and so, you know, obviously whenever you experiment with stuff, not everything's going to be a success, but just the fact that most of it is definitely awesome to see. But yeah, aside from that, dude, anything else you want to talk about with this film or anything else like that?
I don't think so. They did kind of introduce like a weird love plot that went absolutely nowhere.
Oh my god, I forgot.
There's like this dude that's hardcore flirting with her through the whole thing, and she's like receptive to it too, but it's just like a total red herring.
Dude, that went nowhere. Not even like, oh, he's actually working for the witches or something like that.
Yeah.
The dude named Mark.
Good old Mark.
Played by Miguel Bose, I believe.
He doesn't even like drop a hint to her, or like, oh, maybe he's part of, like, nothing about him is helpful towards the plot. It's just kind of like an irrelevant side plot.
Yeah, it's weird, because I remember I was like, oh yeah, I'll talk about him and everything, but like, they do kind of make a big deal out of him and be like, oh, where's Mark or whatever, but like, it goes nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely nowhere.
And nowhere. So that, I don't know how to feel about that, Dario. You can show pretty pictures as much as you want. I want to know that love relationship.
Yeah, like, I really don't know how to feel about it, because I don't know if it was like a good job putting a red herring in a murder movie, like a mystery movie. Like, I guess that maybe was an effective device, or is it just like, did you just not tie up a loose end?
They just forgot.
Like which is it? I don't know. Like, and I don't know how I feel about it. But
yeah, that is funny. That is funny that Mark was forgotten. Well, don't worry, Mark. I'll probably forget about you unintentionally, but right now in the moment, I am not forgetting about you.
Your memory lives on.
Even though
this moment.
Yes, this moment. Even though I just forgot about you in the middle of our review. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me that I want to touch on Suspiria.
Cool.
So you ready for the next spoilers, where I pray to God that this will be much easier on me?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We can play Hangman otherwise if we don't.
That's a brilliant.
You have an A in the... Are there any A's?
No, you're getting ahead.
Oh, shit.
Oh, fuck. Let's see. So this is actually going to be a sequel. I figure a squeakquel to a film that we have already seen. I figure it's time that we checked out a sequel, and it's the third one in the franchise.
Okay.
Came out in 2006.
Okay.
And it's about a dude that wants to play a game.
Oh, it's got to be Saw 3.
Yes, exactly. I genuinely was like, here's an easy ball, but I need to make it as easy as possible. But yes, I figured it's about time to revisit our boy Jigsaw, aka John, and see what the dealio's up to.
What is up with this?
What is up with Jigsaw?
Why does he want to kill so many people?
But don't worry, he doesn't kill the people. They kill themselves.
Oh, that's right.
Anyways, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We'll see y'all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary with Saw 3.
Not many times I saw it.
Yeah, I've seen it once.
Oh.
Yeah. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColkirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary.